The question is simple. As I said, should the Titans use the franchise tag on Harold Landry? Well, the answer is only if they have to. So the franchise tag window in the NFL opened on Tuesday, and it goes until March the 8th. That's how long teams have to decide what they're going to do with that franchise tag. Now, I know it's a pretty common term, but if you don't know, the franchise tag is a 1-year deal for an impending free agent that takes the average of the top 5 salaries at that position and gives it to the player as a 1-year deal. So, for example, if the Titans were to use the franchise tag on Harold Landry, the top 5 average salaries come to $17.5 million for a linebacker or $20 million for a defensive end. Now, those figures can vary by $1 million or less depending on what financial website you go to. Me, I was using Over the Cap. Over the Cap has the franchise tag value on a linebacker at 17.5. You may be asking yourself, why would Landry be a linebacker? Well, the reality is he is a linebacker. He's not a hand in the dirt defensive end that's on the line of scrimmage every single play. A lot of the time, Harold Landry is playing as a second level off ball linebacker in the Titans 4-3 alignments. He'll even line up over the slot at certain times, depending on the defensive alignment. So I would consider Harold Landry a linebacker. I think there's really what it comes down to is if you want to argue in court what position you are, which players in the past have done, like tight ends and wide receivers, linebackers and defensive ends have done this. But a lot of evidence points to Harold Landry being a linebacker. So let's work with the $17.5 million figure. That would be the franchise tag. Here's the reality. You cannot let Harold Landry go. You simply can't. The Titans cannot afford it. They cannot allow it for what their defense has. So if you don't get a long-term deal done with Harold Landry by March the 8th, then you go ahead and place the tag on him. Now, why would the Titans do that? Well, we're just going to go back a couple of years to how the Titans handled Derrick Henry. The Titans slapped the franchise tag on Derrick Henry, and then by the start of training camp, they were able to hammer out a new long-term deal. That has to be the formula if the Titans can't get a long-term deal done with Harold Landry before March 8th. I think they should. I think that it's possible. I think that's what could and should happen. The Titans need to lock down Harold Landry on a long-term 4-year deal. But if for some reason they don't, that is when that franchise tag has to come into play. And now, I'll be honest. There are issues with doing that route, putting the franchise tag on a player with the intent to restructure later. The problem with that is you're going to have that $17.5 million cap hit on your sheet while you go through free agency. So it would behoove the Titans to get a long-term deal done that has a low cap hit in 2022 so that Harold Landry's franchise tag doesn't compromise their flexibility in free agency. Now, having that flexibility in free agency would not deter me from franchise tagging Harold Landry. I think getting Landry back in the fold is much more important than any free agent signing that the Titans are going to make this offseason. So do whatever it takes to get Harold Landry back in the fold for the Titans. Here's my reasoning here quickly. And we're going to talk about Harold Landry as an individual player. But since John Robinson took over for the Titans before the 2016 season, the Titans have been searching for a consistent pass rush. It has been a missing key the entire time. They finally produce a good pass rush. I'm dying here, guys. You see this hair just in my face nonstop? Jeez, man, killing me out here. But the Titans finally put together a competent pass rush with 4 dudes who complement each other. And you want to get rid of the young stud edge rusher that had the most sacks on the team? The Titans finally get a good pass rush, and you want to blow it up by letting Harold Landry go? That doesn't make any sense to me, and that's why I have been very, very confident and spoke with conviction when I say Harold Landry will be a Tennessee Titan in 2022. I refuse to believe anything else. I simply don't believe that. So, with that in mind, if you can't get the long-term deal done, then you place the franchise tag on Landry for 17.5 and you try to negotiate a long-term deal before the start of training camp. that is the path that they can go. But realistically, like I'm saying, I think the Titans get a long-term 4-year deal done with Harold Landry prior to needing to place the tag on him on March 8th. So that's the figures behind the franchise tag. That's the only player I could see the Titans using the franchise tag on. That's the path that they would take if they have to do that. I'm hoping that they don't, but it is within the realm of possibility. Now, what I want to talk about next is Harold Landry as a player and why he deserves the long-term deal, and why, if you don't get the long-term deal done with him, you have to franchise tag him and make sure that he doesn't walk in free agency.